All right, so before I start, I want to point out what are quadrantal angles in unit circle. Let's start with the unit circle. So the unit circle is a circle that is centered at the origin of the rectangular system that we graph. So the point 0, 0, which is the center, the origin of the system, is also the center of the circle. But it's called the unit circle because it has 1 as the radius of the circle. So it's a particular type of circle. Besides of the center being at 0, 0, it also has a radius 1. Because it has a radius 1, we can think that any point on the circle follow the Pythagorean theorem, meaning, so given that you have a point, let's say x and y, on the circle, meaning x and y are values that give a specific location for a point that coincide with the circle. What we can think is that the coordinates of that point, x and y, whatever they are, so there's a value of x and there's a value of y, right? But the radius, since it's 1 all over the circle, or all around, all the points have the same distance to the center, which is 0, 0, and that distance is 1, which is the radius. So if you look at the coordinates of the point with the center of the circle, and I'm referring that this is the point x and y that is on the circle. And because the radius is 1, right, so we have that this quantity right here, the horizontal quantity of this right triangle, which corresponds to the coordinates of the point in the Cartesian plane, that is a quantity x. So this is the quantity x, and this is the quantity y in that triangle, right? So therefore, these three quantities, radius, x, and y, from the point on the unit circle, it follows Pythagorean theorem, which means that the radius, which in this case is the hypotenuse of the triangle, when you square that, is equals to the square of the legs when you add them, okay? And because we have that the radius is 1, so 1 squared is 1, so the relationship is for the unit circle is that 1 is equals to the square of x plus the square of y. So here is one of the last problems that you have in the homework that was open last week. So here's something. So you have a point in the second quadrant, and that point is on the unit circle. Okay, so you know what is the coordinate y of the point. We need to find the exact value of x coordinate, right? So there is a point x and y. We don't know yet what x is, but y is given. Now, we also know that this is in the second quadrant, right? So what does it mean? It means that in the second quadrant, so let me put here quadrant number 2, we have that the coordinate of x must be negative. So x is negative. So when we find the value of x, as you're going to see, you have to make a choice if you're going to take the positive value or negative value, which is one of the steps that come after the square root property. So I will get there. So again, we can apply Pythagorean theorem where r is 1. So again, we know that r squared equals x squared plus y squared. So 1 is squared. We don't know yet what's x, so let's keep writing x squared here. But we know what is y, and y is the coordinate 1 over 4. So we must square that. When you square 1, you get 1. So 1 equals x squared plus, and the square of 1 over 4 is 1 over 16. Right? So please remember that this is the square, and the square means repeated multiplication. So basically you have 1 over 4 multiplied by itself. So 1 times 1 is 1, and 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, so that is the square. So 1 over 16 is the square of 1 over 4. So now we're going to isolate the variable x, so we're going to get the value of x. So from here, I want to isolate the variable x, meaning I needed to subtract my fraction 1 over 16 on both sides, right? So if I subtract, I cancel that on the right side. So what corresponds to that is that x squared is 1 minus 1 over 16. Now 1 is a fraction with denominator 1. And because the LCD is 16, we must have both fractions with 16 in the denominator. So let's modify 1 by multiplying top and bottom of that fraction by 16. So the result is x squared is 16 minus 1 divided by 16, right? We keep the denominator, the common denominator 16, that's now in both fractions, and do actually the subtraction in the numerators. So that is 15 over 16. Now, this is x squared and not x. So in order to solve for x, meaning completely isolation of the variable x, we're going to apply the square root property. The square root property is the following. Given that you have your unknown quantity squared on one side, which is our case for x squared, and the other side is just a number, all you need to do to get the regular x instead of the square, you take plus minus the square root of that number. So here we have plus minus the square root of 16. Oops, 15 over 16. 15 over 16. Okay, obviously we can apply also property of radicals. So take the square root of the numerator, which is square root of 15, and divided by the square root of 16. So we have that x, I'm going to make a choice now. Remember, I have two possibilities here. I'm going to take the negative value because I know it's in the second quadrant. And then the answer is square root of 15 divided by 4.